Dr. Jake Morrison pressed his face against the small window of the human ship New Horizon. The alien moon called Kethamora hung in space before them like a giant silver ball. Its surface was covered with strange blue crystals that caught the light from two distant suns. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful or so scary at the same time. "First time meeting aliens, Doc?" Captain Lisa Ford asked as she walked up behind him. She was a tough woman with short brown hair and kind eyes. Jake had worked with her for 3 years, but this mission was different from anything they had done before. "Yeah," Jake said, still looking out the window. "I've studied their biology for months, but seeing their world is something else." He turned to face the captain. "Are you nervous?" Lisa smiled. "Terrified, but that's what makes it exciting." She pointed to the moon. "The Velthari Empire has ruled this part of space for thousands of years. If we can make friends with them, humanity will have powerful allies. If we mess this up..." She didn't need to finish. Jake knew what was at stake. Earth needed friends among the stars. There were other alien races out there, and not all of them were friendly. The ship's speaker crackled to life. "Attention, crew. We will dock at the alien station in 30 minutes. All diplomatic team members report to the shuttle bay." Jake grabbed his medical bag and headed toward the shuttle bay. Lieutenant Ben Carter, his best friend since medical school, was already there checking weapons. Ben was the security chief, a big man with careful eyes who always watched for danger. "You ready for this, Jake?" Ben asked. "As ready as anyone can. Be for meeting crystal aliens with mind powers," Jake replied. They had studied the Velthari for months. The aliens looked like walking jewels with hard crystal shells covering their bodies. They could read each other's thoughts, something humans could not do. Commander Amy Ross joined them at the shuttle. She was their navigator and tactical officer, a smart woman who could pilot anything that flew. "The Velthari station is incredible," she said. "It's grown from the moon itself like a crystal city." The shuttle ride to the station was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what lay ahead. Through the windows, Jake could see the alien structure getting bigger. It looked like someone had grown a city from diamonds and emeralds. Tall spires twisted up toward space and bridges of light connected different sections. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Jake's heart pounded as the doors opened. The air inside the station smelled like metal and flowers. The walls were made of smooth crystal that glowed with soft light. A group of Velthari waited for them. Jake had seen pictures, but meeting them in person was different. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with bodies covered in crystal plates that shifted color in the light. Their faces were hard to read, but their eyes glowed like stars. One of them stepped forward. Through a translation device, a voice said, "Welcome, humans. I am High Healer Morden. Our Empress waits to meet you." They walked through halls that looked like the inside of a geode. Everything sparkled and hummed with energy. Other Velthari moved past them, their crystal bodies clicking softly as they walked. Jake noticed that they often stopped and stared at each other for a few seconds. He realized they were talking with their minds. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. At the center sat a figure that took Jake's breath away. Empress Zixathara was ancient and magnificent. Her crystal shell was deeper and more complex than the others, with patterns that seemed to move when Jake wasn't looking directly at them. Captain Ford stepped forward and gave a formal bow. "Your Majesty, we come in peace from Earth. We hope to build friendship between our peoples." The Empress spoke, and her voice was like music through the translator. "Humans, your species is young, but we have watched you with interest. You show promise despite your limitations." Jake knew she meant their lack of mind-reading ability. To the Velthari, humans seemed almost deaf and blind. The formal ceremony began. Gifts were exchanged. The Velthari gave the humans a crystal that could store vast amounts of information. The humans offered art, music, and examples of their technology. Everything was going well until it happened. The Empress was rising from her throne when she suddenly stopped. A sound came from her like breaking glass. A crack appeared in the crystal shell over her chest. It was thin at first, but it began to spread. Dark energy seemed to pulse inside it. Empress! High Healer Morden rushed forward. Other Velthari filled the room, their crystal bodies flashing with alarm colors. Jake watched in horror as the crack spread across the Empress's chest. She fell to her knees, and her glow began to dim. The wound looked like nothing Jake had ever seen. It seemed to eat light and life. High Healer Morden placed his hands near the wound. His crystal body glowed brighter as he tried to heal her. Other healers joined him. Jake could feel energy filling the air, but nothing worked. The crack kept spreading. "What is happening to her?" Captain Ford asked. "We do not know," Morden said. His voice was filled with fear. "This wound resists all our healing. It grows stronger, not weaker." Jake stepped closer. His medical training kicked in, pushing aside his fear. The wound was like a parasite, but not a normal one. It seemed to feed on the Empress's mind energy. As she grew weaker, it grew stronger. Hours passed. The Velthari tried everything. Their most advanced machines, their strongest healers, their oldest knowledge. Nothing worked. The Empress was dying, and no one could save her. Jake had been watching and thinking. An idea formed in his mind, crazy and desperate. The wound fed on telepathic energy. But humans didn't have telepathic energy. Maybe that was the answer. "High Healer Morden," Jake said quietly. "May I examine the wound?" The crystal alien turned to him with shock. "You? But you are human. Your medicine is primitive." "Sometimes, primitive is what you need," Jake said. "I think this wound feeds on mind energy. Since humans don't have that, maybe I can get close to it without making it stronger." The room erupted in angry sounds from the Velthari. How dare this human suggest he could succeed where their masters had failed? But the Empress raised one shaking hand. "Let him try," she whispered. "I sense something different about his mind. It is quiet." Jake knelt beside the dying Empress. The wound was worse up close. It pulsed with dark energy that made his teeth ache. But he was right about one thing. It didn't seem to notice him the way it noticed the Velthari healers. This was humanity's first real test among the stars. Could a simple human doctor succeed where an advanced alien civilization had failed? Jake didn't know, but he had to try. The life of an Empress, and maybe the future of both their species, depended on it. Jake knelt beside the Empress and studied the wound more closely. The crack in her crystal shell was about 6 inches long and growing. Inside it, he could see something that made his stomach turn. It looked like living darkness, with tiny tendrils that moved and pulsed. Every few seconds, the dark thing would pulse brighter, and the Empress would shudder with pain. "This is not a normal injury," Jake said to High Healer Morden. "This is some kind of parasite, but it's not biological. It's feeding on psychic energy." Morden's crystal body flickered with surprise colors. "Impossible. Such creatures are myths from our ancient wars." "What ancient wars?" Jake asked. The High Healer looked uncomfortable. "Long ago, our people fought among themselves. Terrible weapons were made. Weapons designed to destroy the mind, but they were all destroyed after the wars ended." Jake looked at the wound again. Well, one of them survived. Or someone made a new one. Around them, the Velthari court was in chaos. Some demanded that Jake be removed. Others argued about what to do. General Kethvar, a massive Velthari with dark red crystal armor, pushed through the crowd. "This human lies," the general said. "He knows nothing of our ways. Remove him before he kills our Empress with his primitive medicine." Captain Ford stepped forward. "My doctor is the best we have. If there's even a small chance he can help, shouldn't you take it?" "No human has ever touched a Velthari," General Kethvar replied. "Your species is too different, too dangerous." Jake ignored the argument and kept studying the wound. He pulled out a small scanner from his medical bag. The device was designed to work on human biology, but it picked up some interesting readings from the alien parasite. "The parasite is definitely feeding on telepathic energy," Jake announced. "Every time someone with psychic abilities gets close, it grows stronger. That's why your healing isn't working. You're actually feeding it. High Healer Morden stepped back in shock. You mean our attempts to heal her are making it worse? Exactly. But humans don't have psychic abilities. The parasite can't feed on us. That means I might be able to get close enough to remove it without making it stronger. The room fell silent. Every Velthari stared at Jake with their glowing eyes. The idea that a psychically deaf human could succeed where they had failed was almost insulting to them. The Empress spoke in a weak voice. How would you remove it? Jake looked at his medical tools. None of them were designed for alien biology. I'll need to adapt some of your surgical tools to work with my techniques, and I'll need to make direct contact with your neural pathways to isolate the parasite. General Kethvar's crystal armor flashed bright red. Direct neural contact? That is forbidden. Only life-bonded mates may touch another's neural clusters. She'll die if we don't try, Jake said simply. Lieutenant Ben Carter moved closer to Jake, his hand near his weapon. He had been quiet during the ceremony, but now he looked ready for trouble. Commander Amy Ross was also watching the Velthari, carefully ready to act if things went bad. High Healer Morden studied his instruments. The human is correct about the parasite feeding on psychic energy. Our scans confirm it grows stronger when we attempt to heal her. This could be a trap, General Kethvar said. How do we know the humans didn't cause this wound? They arrive and suddenly our Empress is dying from an ancient weapon? Captain Ford's voice was cold. Are you accusing us of attempted murder? I'm saying the timing is suspicious. Jake looked up from the Empress. General, with respect, if we wanted to hurt your people, would we really use a weapon that requires one of us to touch your Empress to remove? That's not much of an escape plan. The Empress raised her hand again. Enough. I will allow the human to try. High Healer, give him what he needs. Morden looked unhappy, but he began gathering surgical tools. Jake examined them carefully. They were made of crystal and metal he didn't recognize, but the basic principles were similar to human surgical instruments. I'll need to modify these, Jake said. And I'll need something to block the parasite's energy while I work. We have psi dampeners, Morden said. They reduce psychic energy in a small area. Perfect. Set them up around the Empress, but keep them low power. I need to be able to get close without the parasite noticing me. As the Velthari prepared the equipment, Jake talked to his team. Ben, I need you to watch the crowd. Some of these aliens look ready to kill me if this goes wrong. Amy, monitor the ship. If this turns into a fight, we'll need a fast exit. What about me? Captain Ford asked. Keep talking to them. If I can save their Empress, this could be the start of a great alliance. But if I fail, you won't fail, Ford said firmly. Jake wished he felt as confident as she sounded. He had never operated on an alien before. The Empress's body was completely different from a human's. Her blood was liquid crystal that glowed with soft light. Her organs were made of living mineral that pulsed with energy, and her nervous system was unlike anything in human medical books. The psi dampeners were in place. Jake could feel them, working. The air around the Empress felt different, quieter somehow. The parasite seemed less active, though it was still growing. I'm ready, Jake announced. He knelt beside the Empress and placed his hands near the wound. The parasite didn't react to him the way it reacted to the Velthari. That was a good sign. I'm going to start by mapping your neural pathways around the wound, Jake explained. Then I'll trace the parasite's connections and cut them one by one. The Empress nodded weakly. Do what? You must. Jake began the delicate work. The crystal surgical tools felt strange in his hands, but they were precise. He carefully opened the area around the wound, revealing the parasite in all its horrible detail. It was worse than he had thought. The thing had wrapped its tendrils around several major neural clusters. Removing it would be like performing brain surgery, but on an alien brain he barely understood. Around him, the Velthari watched in tense silence. General Kethvar stood with his arms crossed, clearly expecting Jake to fail. High Healer Morden watched every move, ready to stop the procedure if something went wrong. Jake worked slowly and carefully. The parasite was cunning. It had positioned itself so that removing it might damage the Empress's mind. But Jake had one advantage the Velthari didn't. The parasite couldn't sense him coming. "First tendril is isolated," Jake announced. "Cutting now." The parasite writhed as Jake severed its connection. Dark energy leaked from the cut, but it quickly faded without psychic energy to feed on. "It's working," High Healer Morden said in amazement. Jake continued working. One tendril at a time, he cut the parasite away from the Empress's neural system. Each cut made the creature weaker, and the Empress a little stronger. But the final tendril was wrapped around the most sensitive part of her neural system, the consciousness node that controlled her thoughts and memories. One wrong move could destroy her mind forever. "This is the dangerous part," Jake warned. "I need to be very precise." He positioned his tools carefully and began the final cut. The parasite seemed to sense its danger and fought back, sending waves of dark energy through the Empress's body. She cried out in pain. Jake's hand moved toward the consciousness node, ready to make the cut that would save her life. But at the crucial moment, something went wrong. The crystal tool slipped in his unfamiliar grip. Instead of cutting the parasite's tendril, his hand touched the Empress's consciousness node directly. The world exploded into light and sensation as Jake's mind suddenly connected with an alien consciousness 800 years old. Everything he thought he knew about the universe was about to change. The moment Jake's hand touched the Empress's consciousness node, the world disappeared. He was no longer in the crystal throne room. He was no longer in his own body. Instead, he was floating in a vast space filled with memories and thoughts that were not his own. Jake tried to pull away, but he couldn't move. He was trapped in the alien mind, experiencing 800 years of life in seconds. He saw the Empress as a young crystal being, learning to rule. He felt her loneliness as she made decisions that affected billions of lives. He experienced her wonder at discovering new worlds and her sadness at the wars her people had fought. But the strangest thing was that the Empress was experiencing his memories too. Through their connection, she was seeing Earth for the first time through human eyes. She felt the warmth of a summer day, the taste of chocolate, the feeling of rain on skin. She experienced human emotions that her people considered primitive, but she found fascinating. In the throne room, both bodies had gone rigid. Jake knelt frozen beside the Empress, his hand still touching her consciousness node. The Empress had stopped breathing, her crystal body glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen. "What is happening?" General Kethvar shouted. "The human is killing her." High Healer Morden studied his instruments with growing amazement. "No, they are connected. Their minds are linked. This should be impossible." Captain Ford grabbed Ben Carter's arm. "Can you break the connection?" "I don't know what would happen if we try," Morden said. "Neural connections like this are sacred to our people. Breaking one by force could destroy both minds." Inside the shared consciousness, Jake was learning things about the Velthari that no human had ever known. He saw their true history, including the civil wars they didn't like to talk about. He learned that the psychic parasites had been created by a faction of Velthari who believed their species should remain pure and never contact other races. More importantly, he saw the truth about the parasite that was killing the Empress. It hadn't been a leftover from the ancient wars. Someone had planted it recently. Someone who didn't want the Velthari to make friends with humanity. The Empress was experiencing revelations of her own. Through Jake's memories, she saw how humans lived and loved despite their short lives. She felt their determination to explore space even though they were weak compared to other alien races. She experienced their capacity for friendship and sacrifice. "Your people are not primitive," her mental voice said to Jake. "You are different. Your emotions are so strong, so pure. My people have forgotten how to feel the way you do." "Your people are amazing too," Jake replied with his thoughts. "You've built an empire that lasts thousands of years. You've mastered space and energy. Humans dream of becoming what you are. But we have lost something in becoming what we are," the Empress said sadly. "We have become cold, logical. We make decisions based on efficiency, not on what is right." As they shared their thoughts, something unexpected happened. The psychic parasite, still wrapped around the Empress's consciousness node, began to weaken. It had been designed to feed on normal Velthari telepathic energy, but the strange hybrid consciousness created by the human-Velthari connection was something new. The parasite couldn't digest it. Jake felt the creature's confusion and hunger. Without thinking, he reached out with his consciousness and grabbed it. The parasite tried to fight back, but it was weak and confused. Jake pulled it away from the Empress's neural pathways like removing a splinter. In the throne room, the parasite's physical form began to dissolve. The dark energy faded, and the crack in the Empress's crystal shell started to heal. But the connection between Jake and the Empress remained strong. Through their link, Jake saw the truth about who had planted the parasite. The Empress's own cousin, Prince Velthor, had arranged the assassination. He led a faction that believed contact with humans would weaken the Velthari Empire. He wanted the Empress dead so he could take control and end all contact with alien races. He will try again, the Empress told Jake through their mental connection. He has followers in the military and among the nobles. You have saved my life, but the danger is not over. Then we'll face it together, Jake replied. This connection between us, it's not going away, is it? No. Neural bonds like this are permanent among my people. You are now part of me, and I am part of you. Forever. Jake felt a moment of panic. He was trapped in an alien mind bonded to a being from another world. His life as a human doctor was over, but then he felt the Empress's emotions, her gratitude, her loneliness that was finally eased, her genuine care for his well-being. The panic faded. What does this mean for our peoples? Jake asked. I do not know. This has never happened before. A human and a Velthari mentally bonded. My people will be shocked, some will be angry, but perhaps this is what both our species need. In the throne room, the mental connection finally began to weaken. Jake gasped and pulled his hand away from the Empress's consciousness node. The Empress sat up, her crystal body glowing with renewed health. The wound was completely gone, but everyone in the room could see that something fundamental had changed. Jake's eyes now had a faint glow that matched the Empress's. And when the Empress looked at Jake, her expression was softer than any Velthari had ever seen. The parasite is gone, High Healer Morden announced in amazement. The Empress is healed. But how? General Kethvar stepped forward, his crystal armor flashing, angry red. What have you done, human? What dark magic is this? Jake stood up slowly. He could still feel the Empress's presence in the back of his mind. It was comforting and terrifying at the same time. No magic, General. Just two different minds working together. You have contaminated our Empress, General Kethvar shouted. You have violated our most sacred laws. I have saved her life, Jake replied calmly. Through his connection with the Empress, he could feel her support and strength. The Empress rose from her throne. When she spoke, her voice was different, warmer, more emotional than before. General Kethvar, this human has indeed saved my life. And in doing so, he has shown me truths about his people that I never understood. Your Majesty, please, the general pleaded. This human has contaminated you with his primitive emotions. We must purify you immediately. I am not contaminated, the Empress said firmly. I am enlightened. Through this bond, I have experienced human consciousness. Their emotions are not primitive. They are pure and powerful. We have much to learn from them. Captain Ford stepped forward carefully. Your Majesty, what exactly has happened to my doctor? The Empress looked at Jake with glowing eyes. Your doctor and I are now neural bonded. In my culture, this creates a permanent connection between two minds. He is no longer just human, and I am no longer just Velthari. We are something new. High Healer Morden studied them both with his instruments. The readings are incredible. Their brain patterns are synchronized. They are truly linked. General Kethvar's armor flashed brighter red. This is an abomination. The purity of our race has been destroyed. Our race was never pure, the Empress said sharply, And this bond may be exactly what we need to grow stronger. Through Jake's mind, I have seen that strength comes not from isolation, but from connection. Jake could feel the Empress's determination through their bond. She was preparing to make a choice that would change everything for both their peoples. But he could also sense danger. General Kethvar wasn't the only one who would oppose this new alliance. Through their connection, Jake felt the Empress's knowledge of her cousin's plot. Prince Velthor was probably already gathering his forces. The assassination attempt had failed, but the coup was just beginning. "Your Majesty," Jake said quietly, "we need to talk. There are things you need to know about who really caused this attack." The Empress nodded. "Yes, and there are things my people must learn about the bond we now share. But first, we must prepare for what comes next." Jake looked around the throne room at the shocked and angry faces of the Velthari court. His life had changed forever when his hand slipped during the surgery. He was no longer just a human doctor. He was something new, something that bridged two worlds. The question was whether both worlds would accept what he had become, or whether they would try to destroy it. Through his bond with the Empress, Jake knew the answer would determine the fate of both human and Velthari civilizations. The throne room erupted in chaos the moment the Empress announced the neural bond. Velthari courtiers began flashing angry colors with their crystal bodies. Some demanded that Jake be executed immediately. Others called for the Empress to be purified of human contamination. The sound of crystal voices arguing filled the air like breaking glass. General Kethvar raised his hands for silence. "Your Majesty, this human has committed the ultimate violation of our sacred laws. Neural bonding without permission is a crime punishable by death." "I gave permission," the Empress said firmly. "The bond was accidental, but I accept it willingly." "You were dying," the general protested. "You could not give proper consent." Captain Ford moved closer to Jake, ready to protect him. Lieutenant Ben Carter's hand rested on his weapon. Commander Amy Ross was quietly speaking into her communication device, probably warning the ship about the dangerous situation. Jake could feel the Empress's emotions through their bond. She was angry at her people's reaction, but not surprised. The Velthari had always believed that contact with other species would weaken them. Now their worst fears seemed to be coming true. "General," Jake said, trying to stay calm, "I understand your concern, but we have bigger problems than the bond. The parasite that attacked the Empress wasn't an accident." "What do you mean?" High Healer Morden asked. Through his connection with the Empress, Jake had seen the truth. Now he shared it with the room. Someone planted that parasite deliberately. It was designed to kill the Empress and make it look like a natural death. The timing wasn't a coincidence. They wanted her dead before she could make an alliance with humanity. The room fell silent. Even General Kethvar stopped flashing angry colors. "That is impossible," Morden said. "Those parasites were destroyed centuries ago. No one knows how to make them anymore." "Someone does," the Empress said. Her voice was sad but certain. "Through the bond, I have seen the truth. My cousin, Prince Velthor, orchestrated this attack." Gasps echoed through the throne room. Prince Velthor was popular among the traditional nobles. Many considered him a better choice to rule than the Empress, who they thought was too willing to change old ways. "You have no proof," General Kethvar said, but his voice was less certain now. "I have more than proof," the Empress replied. "I have memories." The parasite carried traces of its creator's psychic signature, Prince Velthor's signature. High Healer Morden began scanning the dissolved remains of the parasite with his instruments. After several minutes, he looked up with shock. "She speaks the truth. The psychic residue does match Prince Velthor's mental pattern." The accusation sent shockwaves through the court. If the prince had tried to murder the Empress, it meant the entire government was in danger. Some nobles began backing away from General Kethvar, who was known to be one of Prince Velthor's supporters. Jake felt the Empress's fear through their bond. She wasn't afraid of death. She was afraid of what would happen to her people if civil war broke out. The Velthari Empire was strong, but it could be torn apart by fighting between different factions. "Where is Prince Velthor now?" Captain, Ford asked. He commands the Third Fleet, General Kethavar said reluctantly. 50 warships on patrol near the outer colonies. That's enough firepower to take control of this entire system, Commander Amy Ross observed. If he decides to move against you, Your Majesty, we could be in serious trouble. The Empress stood up from her throne. When she spoke, her voice carried new authority that came from her bond with Jake's human determination. General Kethavar, I am relieving you of command. Your loyalty to my cousin makes you unfit to protect this station. You cannot, the general protested. I have served faithfully for 50 years. You have served my cousin faithfully, the Empress corrected. That is not the same thing. General Kethavar's crystal armor flashed bright red with rage. This is the human's influence. He has poisoned your mind with his primitive emotions. Jake stepped forward. Through his bond with the Empress, he could feel her inner strength. But he also sensed her doubt. She had never made such a bold decision before. Your Majesty is thinking more clearly than she ever has. The bond doesn't weaken her. It gives her new perspective. The perspective of an inferior species. General Kethavar snarled. That's enough, the Empress said. Guards, escort the general to his quarters. He is confined until further notice. 2 Velthari guards moved to obey, but General Kethavar shook them off. You will regret this decision. 6th Era. The prince will not allow his empire to be corrupted by alien influence. As the general was led away, Jake felt a chill through his bond with the Empress. The general's last words had been a threat, not just angry words. High Healer Morden approached the throne. Your Majesty, I must examine this bond more closely. If Prince Velthor learns of it, he will use it to claim you are unfit to rule. Let him try, the Empress said. But Jake could feel her uncertainty through their mental connection. For the next several hours, Morden ran detailed scans of both Jake and the Empress. The results were unlike anything in Velthari medical records. The bond had created new neural pathways in both their brains. They were still separate beings, but their minds were permanently linked. This is unprecedented, Morden announced, to the court. The human and the Empress share thoughts, emotions, even memories. They have become something new. Something unnatural, one of the nobles said with disgust. Jake was getting tired of the constant insults about his species. Through his bond, he felt the Empress's growing anger too. Maybe it's unnatural, he said, but it saved her life, and it might save both our peoples. How? Another noble asked. Jake looked at the Empress, and she nodded for him to continue. Through our bond, I understand Velthari culture in ways no human ever has. And the Empress understands human nature better than any alien. Together we can bridge the gap between our species. Or we can destroy both species, the noble replied. Mixing different races never works. It only creates weakness. Captain Ford had been quiet during most of the discussions, but now she spoke up. With respect, that's exactly what Prince Velthor wants you to believe. He tried to murder your Empress to prevent an alliance with humanity. Why? Because he knows that alliance would make the Velthari Empire stronger, not weaker. Humans have nothing to offer us, another noble said. You are weak, short-lived, and lack basic telepathic abilities. Jake felt a flash of anger, but the Empress's calming presence through their bond helped him stay controlled. We may be different, but that's our strength. Humans think in ways you don't. We solve problems you can't, and we never give up, even when the odds are against us. Like today, the Empress added. My own healers could not save me, but this human did, not because he was stronger or smarter, but because he was different. High Healer Morden studied his instruments again. I am detecting unusual activity in the outer system. Multiple ships are approaching at high speed. Commander Amy Ross checked her own scanner. Those are Velthari warships, looks like about 30 vessels. The Empress's face went pale. Through their bond, Jake felt her fear spike. The Third Fleet. My cousin has made his move. How long before they reach us? Captain Ford asked. 6 hours, Amy replied. The Empress stood up. her crystal body glowing with determination. Prince Velthor believes he can use my bond with Jake to prove I am unfit to rule. He thinks the traditional nobles will support him against a contaminated Empress. Won't they? Jake asked. Through their bond, he felt the Empress's grim smile. Some will, but others remember what civil war cost our people before, and now thanks to our bond, I have something I never had before. What's that? The courage to fight for what I believe in, instead of just doing what is expected. She turned to address the court. My people, we face a choice. We can remain isolated and pure, as Prince Velthor desires, or we can embrace change and grow stronger through cooperation with our new human allies. And if we choose wrong? A noble asked. Jake felt the Empress's resolve through their bond. Then we face the consequences together. But I would rather risk everything fighting for hope than surrender to fear. Outside the Crystal Station, Prince Velthor's fleet was getting closer. Soon the Empress would have to choose between war with her own people or surrender to those who wanted to destroy everything she was trying to build. Through their bond, Jake shared his strength with her. Whatever came next, they would face it, together. The accidental connection between a human doctor and an alien Empress was about to be tested in the fires of civil war. Prince Velthor's fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of angry metal wasps. 30 Velthari warships surrounded the Crystal Station, their weapons powered and ready. From the lead ship, a message arrived demanding that the Empress surrender, herself for purification and judgment. In the throne room, Jake could feel the Empress's calm determination through their bond. She was no longer the uncertain ruler who had been afraid to make hard choices. The connection with Jake's human emotions had given her something she had never had before, the courage to fight for what she believed in. Your Majesty, High Healer Morden said nervously, perhaps we should consider the prince's demands. He has overwhelming force. Numbers are not everything, the Empress replied. Through their bond, Jake felt her drawing on his memories of human military history. She was learning about tactics her people had never considered. Captain Ford was speaking quietly with Commander Amy Ross. Can we call for backup from Earth? The nearest human fleet is weeks away, Amy replied. We're on our own. Jake closed his eyes and reached out through his bond with the Empress. Together, their minds could process information faster than either could alone. They began analyzing the enemy fleet's formation, looking for weaknesses. Prince Velthor is making a mistake, Jake said suddenly. He's positioning his ships like this is a normal space battle, but this is a civil war. Many of those ship crews don't really want to fight their own Empress. The Empress's eyes began to glow brighter. You are right. My cousin assumes loyalty can be commanded, but true loyalty must be earned. She activated the station's communication system. Her voice echoed through space to every ship in the enemy fleet. My loyal subjects, she began, you have been told that I am contaminated by alien influence. You have been told that the bond I share with the human Jake Morrison makes me unfit to rule. I ask you to judge for yourselves. Through their connection, Jake fed the Empress his memories of Earth, not just the wars and struggles, but the beauty and hope. She shared these images with her people through the communication link. Through this bond, I have seen another world, the Empress continued. I have experienced the emotions of a species that refuses to surrender, no matter how difficult the odds. I have felt the warmth of friendship between different peoples. This is not contamination. This is growth. On several of the enemy ships, Jake could see through the station's sensors that some crews were hesitating. The Empress's words were having an effect. But Prince Velthor's voice cut through the transmission. Do not listen to her lies. She has been poisoned by alien thoughts. I am your rightful ruler now. You are a traitor and a murderer, the Empress replied calmly. You planted the psychic parasite that nearly killed me. You wanted me dead so you could take power and destroy any chance of alliance with humanity. Prove it, Prince Velthor demanded. Jake had an idea. Through his bond with the Empress, he shared it with her instantly. She smiled and nodded. Very well, the Empress said. I will prove it. But not with words, with evidence. She reached out with her psychic abilities, enhanced by her connection to Jake's different way of thinking. Together, they accessed the station's memory banks and pulled up the psychic residue from the parasite. Then they broadcast it to every ship in the fleet. The evidence was undeniable. Prince Velthor's psychic signature was embedded in the weapon that had tried to kill the Empress. Gasps of shock echoed through the communication channels as ship after ship recognized the truth. Lies, Prince Velthor shouted. The human has taught her to fake evidence. But the damage was done. Several ships began pulling back from the attack formation. Their captains announced over open channels that they would not fight for a leader who tried to murder his own family. Prince Velthor realized he was losing control. All ships open fire. Destroy the station and the contaminated Empress. About half the fleet obeyed. Energy beams lanced out toward the crystal station. But the other half either refused to fire or turned their weapons on Prince Velthor's ships instead. The space around the station erupted into chaos as Velthari fought Velthari. Inside the station, Jake felt the building shake as energy blasts hit the crystal walls. We need to get you somewhere safe, he told the Empress. No, she replied, firmly. My people need to see that I am not afraid. Through their bond, Jake felt her plan forming. It was dangerous and required perfect timing, but it might work. You want to broadcast directly to the entire empire, he said. Yes. But not just with words. I want to share our bond with them. Let them experience what we have experienced. Jake felt a moment of fear. Opening their mental connection to billions of alien minds could destroy them both. But he also felt the Empress's certainty that this was the only way to end the civil war before it tore their civilization apart. Do it, he said. The Empress reached out with her psychic abilities, amplified by the station's crystal matrix. Her mental voice reached not just the ships around the station, but every Velthari world in the Empire. And through her bond with Jake, she carried something unprecedented, the thoughts and emotions of a human mind. Across hundreds of worlds, Velthari felt human emotions for the first time. They experienced Jake's memories of friendship and sacrifice. They felt his determination to save the Empress even at the cost of his own humanity. They understood, perhaps for the first time, that strength could come from cooperation instead of domination. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. On ship after ship, Velthari crews stopped fighting and stared in wonder at the alien emotions flowing through their minds. They felt Jake's love for his friends, his loyalty to Captain Ford, his willingness to risk everything to save a being from another world. Prince Velthor tried to fight back, sending out his own psychic broadcasts, full of fear and hatred. But his negative emotions seemed weak and ugly compared to the pure human feelings the Empress was sharing. One by one, the ships loyal to Prince Velthor began surrendering. Their crews announced that they would not fight against an Empress who could show them such wonders. Prince Velthor's voice became desperate. You fools! These are primitive emotions. They will make us weak. No, came a voice from one of his own ship captains. They make us stronger. I have never felt anything as powerful as this human's determination to save our Empress. The battle was effectively over. Prince Velthor's remaining ships were outnumbered and surrounded, but the prince himself was not ready to surrender. If I cannot rule a pure empire, his voice echoed through space, then I will ensure no empire exists at all. His flagship began glowing with dangerous energy. Jake realized with horror that Prince Velthor was preparing to self-destruct his ship's power core. The explosion would be big enough to destroy the station and everything around it. Through their bond, Jake and the Empress acted as one. She reached out with her psychic abilities while he provided the tactical thinking. Together, they coordinated the loyal fleet's response with precision no single Velthari could have managed. Tractor beams from dozens of ships grabbed Prince Velthor's vessel and pulled it away from the station. Energy dampeners disrupted his ship's power core before it could explode. Within minutes, the prince was captured and his rebellion was over. In the aftermath, as the loyal fleet secured the area and tended to the wounded, Jake and the Empress stood together in the throne room, The crisis was over, but both of them knew that everything had changed forever. What happens now? Jake asked. The Empress smiled, and through their bond he felt her happiness and hope. Now we build something new, a government that includes both our peoples, an alliance based on understanding instead of fear. High Healer Morden approached them. Your Majesty, the Empire awaits your orders. My first order is to establish a new position in our government, the Empress announced. Jake Morrison will serve as the first human Velthari bridge. His role will be to help our peoples understand each other and work together. Jake felt honored and terrified at the same time. I'm just a doctor. I don't know anything about governing an empire. You know about healing, the Empress replied, and that is what our peoples need most. Healing from centuries of isolation and fear. Captain Ford stepped forward. What about Earth? They're going to want to know what happened to their diplomat. Jake will remain here as humanity's permanent representative, the Empress said, but he will also be my bond partner and advisor. Through him, our peoples will learn to trust each other. Lieutenant Ben Carter looked worried. Jake, are you sure about this? You'll be leaving everything behind. Jake considered this. Through his bond with the Empress, he could feel her loneliness beginning to fade for the first time in centuries. He could also sense the hope of billions of Velthari who had experienced human emotions and found them beautiful rather than primitive. I'm not leaving everything behind, Jake said. I'm helping to build something new, something that could change the galaxy. Months later, the accidental bond between a human doctor and an alien empress had become the foundation of the greatest alliance in galactic history. Other species began to take notice as humans and Velthari worked together on projects that neither could have accomplished alone. Jake never regretted the moment his hand slipped during that desperate surgery. What had seemed like a terrible accident had become the